The holiday season is always a busy and profitable time for online sellers. But what most people don't realize is it actually starts sooner than you think. And that's why knowing what's hot and when it counts is a useful skill to have. And here to tell me about what's going to be hot this holiday season is none other than Starla Moore. She is an Etsy expert and, of course, a manager over at eRank, which is a well-known Etsy SEO tool. And she's also a teacher. She heads up the Handmade Alpha Academy. I know we got a bunch of Handmade Alphas watching right now. I can't see it, but I can already feel the flood of wolf emojis that are coming through in the chat right now. So thank you all for joining the program. And of course, Starla Moore, welcome back to Amplified.
Absolutely. Always excited to be here.
So let's talk about the basics here and get people set up, because you often talk about two types of trends. And we got our seasonal trends and our fleeting trends. So can you break down for the folks watching at home what the differences between those are?
I like to talk about trends in those two categories. I think that they're the most easy for everyone to recognize. Those two categories, like you said, are seasonal trends and fleeting trends. Now, seasonal trends are the ones that we can count on every single year. Things like Christmas, Halloween, Valentine's Day, weddings, graduations. They're predictable. They come around like clockwork. And we can actually use past data to forecast when those spikes in demand will happen again. The downside, of course, is that because everyone knows these moments are coming, they tend to be more competitive. Fleeting trends, on the other hand, move much faster. They're often tied to pop culture, like a viral meme, a TV show character, or a celebrity moment that everyone sees everywhere. These can be really high impact in the short term, but they're also risky. Not only do they burn out really quickly, but more often than not, they're tied to intellectual property that you don't actually own the rights to. And sometimes those two types of trends overlap. So for example, I predict that this Halloween, we're going to see a lot of Labubu Halloween costumes. But realistically, it's not something that I anticipate is going to return year after year. I think that this is going to be a fleeting one. So
fingers crossed.
Exactly. The big takeaway is that seasonal trends give you long-term predictability, while fleeting trends can give you short bursts of attention.
And it's always interesting to me to see what fleeting trends become those seasonal trends. You know, which fleeting trends almost pick up enough velocity to become those. Because, for example, a couple months ago, Etsy put out a report about a trend towards home decor products, which is something that we've been talking about for a while. But listen to these numbers here. Apparently, according to Etsy, searches for the words modern rustic farmhouse are up 3,500%. These are real numbers according to Etsy. France cottage decor, Y2K decor. Now, of course, this is an example of how something that may have just been something a long time ago, Y2K, cottagecore, I know something we've heard a long time, they've stuck around. I'm curious, are there any fleeting trends that have stuck around that have surprised you?
Oh, yeah. And anybody who knows me know that I love both of these trends. So the first one is dragons, which really started gaining momentum when House of the Dragon was released, and that interest was fueled even further by several big dragon-themed fantasy book releases like Fourth Wing. But what's really interesting is that even after that initial pop culture push, the searches haven't died down. In fact, they've held strong. And the great thing here is that as long as you're not referencing specific shows or characters, dragon as a general theme is broad enough to be safe and still trending. The other one that surprised me is mushrooms, which I'm sure has been, something that everyone's seen in stores and online. They seem to be everywhere. Mushrooms have been a steady favorite on Etsy for the last 4 years, and while the overall popularity has slowed down just a little bit, they're still converting at a really significant rate. So even though they're not spiking as high as they once did, the people who are searching for mushrooms are still very likely to buy. So between dragons holding strong and mushrooms continuing to convert, both of these trends show that sometimes what starts as a pop culture wave can turn into a longer-term design opportunity if you approach it the right way.
And it obviously goes without saying that social media has a huge impact on how well these trends do, especially if they stick around. And I would argue that great social media content can do as much for your store as, good mock-ups or if you're using good mock-ups with paid ads for sure. But one of my favorite examples is when products really do go viral, especially unsuspecting ones. The famous example that I have that I always love to bring up is the Stanley Cups. I know during the pandemic, we all saw Stanley Cup content in our feeds. And that was a real choice that Stanley made in 2020 to reach out with affiliates, reach out with their influencers, and really start promoting their products that way because they realized the value of a good trend. And then suddenly 2 years down the road, it wasn't a Stanley video, it wasn't an affiliate video that really got them on the map. It was a video of a car that had been set on fire and there was a Stanley Cup inside, and then that is what did it for them. So before 2020, this was a company that was putting in $70 million annually, and after that video in 2023, they boosted their profits up to $750 million. So that is crazy in and of its own.
Oh yeah, that's insane. And I'm sure you guys know this one. What about capybaras? Those adorable giant guinea pigs that you always see on TikTok with oranges balanced on their heads. That viral set of videos actually started when a zoo in Japan started adding citrus fruits to their capybara hot spring. And since capybaras in the wild would naturally have birds resting on their heads, they didn't care when the zookeepers started balancing fruits on their head. And of course, since it was super duper cute, people started recording them, and somehow this cute visual quickly became a symbol for peace and zen, which is why you can now find tons of products with capybaras.
I'm zen right now, just looking at that, to be honest with you. I want this trend to come back. We need to make this a seasonal trend. But as an Etsy seller, I want to pick your brain then. How much time should a new seller spend on social media researching these trends?
Yeah, this is a really great question because I think a lot of sellers either spend way too much time buried in trend research or they don't do nearly enough. And the key is balance, right? On one side, you've got your fleeting trends. These are things that you pick up on casually just by living your everyday life, like scrolling through TikTok or Instagram, watching what's popping up in stores, or even just paying attention to what the kids are talking about. Now, that doesn't require dedicated research time. It's more about building an awareness muscle as you go about your day-to-day life. However, on the other side, you've got seasonal trends, and that's where I recommend sellers set aside a little structured time, ideally at the start of every month. This is when you look at what was popular during the same season last year, check the data, and ask yourself, can I layer a fleeting trend on top of a seasonal one? And that's where the magic really happens, when you can stack them together, such as a capybara Christmas shirt, for example. So, in short, you don't need to spend hours a day researching. Casual awareness for fleeting trends is built into your daily routine, and just a focused check-in once a month is plenty for seasonal. Balance is what makes it sustainable and actually actionable.
So when we look at the seasonal behavior for this year compared to last year, have you noticed something very different? Is there some commonalities you're seeing, or?
Yeah, so what's really interesting about this year in particular, and what's going to get everyone really excited, is that normally Christmas-related searches on Etsy don't really spike until after Halloween, because that's when shoppers start getting into holiday mode, and historically, that's when we see the biggest surge in activity. But we've been keeping an eye on our data over at eRank for the last few months, and we've noticed something surprising. Christmas searches were already showing up as early as June. Not only searches, but actual conversions, meaning that people were buying Christmas products way ahead of the usual season. Now, if you look at this graph right here for Christmas shirts, you'll see exactly what I mean. That big spike comes later, but the momentum was already building months beforehand. This is why it's so important to list your products before the curve. So if you're waiting until the spike hits, you're already way behind. My advice is super simple here, guys. Aim to have your seasonal products live at least 4 months ahead of the spike. The earlier that you list, the more likely you are to ride the trend as it builds, and the better your chances of capturing those early bird shoppers are.
But there's a caveat with this, because I've also heard you warn sellers not to chase every trend blindly. So how can someone decide whether a trend is worth chasing or not?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer that not every trend is worth chasing, and just because something is trending doesn't automatically mean that it belongs in your shop. For example, if you're selling children's clothing, it wouldn't make sense to suddenly start adding wine, quote, t-shirts just because you see that wine is trendy. So instead, you always want to create with intention by asking yourself, does this trend make sense for my niche? And can I overlap it naturally with what I'm already selling? When you do that, you're not just chasing trends, but you're stacking them on top of your existing brand. And again, that's where the real magic happens. So for example, in my own shop, I sell bookish themed products. So when dragons started trending, I leaned into my own niche and created a design around being a book dragon. That way, I was able to participate in the trend while still staying true to my brand and connecting with my existing audience. Oh, and another thing that I don't think sellers realize, you know how Etsy has those big featured sections on their homepage, like shop the latest fall styles? Yeah. Or you get an email that is telling you to shop from different categories. Well, every time that you click on one of those sections, Etsy actually registers that as a search. And that section click is tied to a search query. So occasionally you'll see a super specific trend skyrocket in Etsy for a month, such as book lover gifts, then drop in search the next month. So just something to be aware of if you ever see these abnormal patterns. But between us, Talish, the best approach is to keep your eyes open, scroll TikTok, shop around in stores, notice what's emerging, and then bring in the trends that you can authentically make your own so that you can build longevity instead of just hopping from one short-lived fad to the next.
Now, of course, aside from social media, another way that people can track trends, like you've just done here, is through SEO tools, eRank, for example. So for people who are using those type of tools, especially eRank, can you tell us, or at least show us, how they can turn sort of a broad trend idea into an actual product opportunity?
Yeah, so let's take weddings as our starting point, since that's such a huge evergreen market. People are getting married all times a year. So if we pop that term into eRank's keyword tool, we can start really, really broad. We want to start as broad as possible and narrow our way down. From there, I'd scroll down to our keyword ideas list, which is where the real magic is located. So first, you're going to sort by the competition levels. That way, the terms with the lowest competition float to the top. And don't be shocked if you see a lot of those unknown terms. That's actually a good sign, because when you scrape the bottom of the barrel, that's often where you find the hidden gems that other sellers aren't paying attention to yet. Now, looking at this list, we can see several terms related to weddings that have surprisingly low competition compared to their search volumes, such as fantasy wedding dress. Now, obviously, you can't POD a wedding dress.
Not yet, but don't tempt us, Starla. We're gonna, any day now, you'll see it, all right? This might be a new niche opportunity for you.
Oh, well, you guys heard it here first. You heard it here first. We're gonna POD our whole wedding. But guys, what this tells us is that fantasy weddings are a theme that people are actively looking for. We can also see that wedding puzzle guest books are popular. And if you know Printify's catalog, you know they have tons of puzzles available. So what if we stacked these two ideas together? Instead of just making a generic puzzle or a generic wedding guest book, what about creating a fantasy-themed wedding puzzle guest book?
Hey.
That's the power of starting broad, filtering strategically, and then looking for those opportunities to combine trends together.
I love that. And it's not just about finding keywords. Like you said, it's about stacking those trends. So can you explain how trend stacking works and why it's so powerful?
Yeah, so stacking is one of my favorite strategies because it's where you can take what's trending and make it unique to your own shop and niche. So this basically just means combining two or more trends together so that instead of chasing the same broad keyword everyone else is targeting, you give it a fresh angle that helps you to stand out. For example, right now we see that mushrooms are trending. At the same time, wall art is also trending. Now, if we put those together, suddenly we've got mushroom, dorm room, wall art. Those are three trends that we know are all active right now, and we can just stack them into a super trend. That's a product idea that doesn't just follow one, it taps into three at once. Not to mention, stacking trends is an amazing way to break into saturated markets. You're not just another seller offering wall art, you're offering something specific, relevant, and timely that has a much better chance of connecting with buyers. And of course, tools like eRank make this even easier. If you see this little yellow high conversion badge when searching for a keyword, it means that this keyword is actively making money on Etsy right now. So when you stack trends around those terms, you're not only following shopper interest, you're aligning with what's already converting. And for those who want to try this out for yourselves, or if you need a little extra help with Etsy SEO and feel like you need a crash course, I'm actually giving away tons of free resources over at starlaiscool.com, including free SEO ebooks, my top free SEO courses, and even a month trial of eRank Pro so that you can research trends that are guaranteed to make money this season, which is exactly why I love trend stacking. It's creative, it's data-driven, and it helps sellers carve out their own little corner in a busy marketplace. And hey, Talish, while we're giving stuff away, do you mind if we give the audience today some free moneymakers? Just like a list of product ideas that have high searches and no competition?
This is what we've been waiting for. Let's go for it.
Absolutely. So this is a sweet deal, right? What you guys are currently looking at are keywords that have more shoppers than sellers on Etsy right now. In other words, there are literally more people searching for these items than there are products available to buy. That is a gap in the marketplace, and that is a gap that can be your guys' opportunity. I mean, think about it. If thousands of people are searching for something like mushroom lamp or reusable custom wedding cups, but only a fraction of sellers are actually offering those products, that means lower competition, higher visibility, and a better shot at making sales. And here's the best part. These aren't theoretical. These are items that you could go out and create today, list in your shop, and start selling. I've already done the research for you. It's like free money sitting on the table just waiting for someone to claim it. And remember, this is just a sample. When you deep dive into Etsy keyword data, you'll find tons of ideas just like this. These gaps pop up all the time, and sellers who spot them early are the ones who profit first.
Now, look, we've got a couple minutes left here, so I know that there's a lot of sellers who are watching this thinking, man, I'm so behind. I haven't even started yet. So what's your advice to those people, real short?
Yeah, technically it's not too late, but you do need to act fast. So right now, I'd focus on the near-term holidays that are still ahead of us, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. There's still plenty of shopper demand in those windows, and if you move quickly, you can absolutely catch some of that traffic. A quick win is to use a tool like eRank's keyword tool to see which holiday keywords are converting right now, and update your listings accordingly. Even something as simple as refreshing your titles and tags with trending terms can give you an immediate boost. But just be sure to follow my golden rule of Etsy SEO, which is, I'm sure my alphas in the chat are probably screaming it, never, ever, ever change the tags and title of a listing that's already performing well. Ever. I could go on for hours about this topic alone, but to keep it short, if a listing's selling, Etsy's identified what the item is and who to show it to. So changing the tags or the title can kill your traffic. I've got like 100 videos covering that topic on my YouTube channel if anyone wants to learn more though. So to get back on topic, if you still feel like you've missed the window for this holiday sales cycle, don't beat yourself up. The great thing about the holiday season is that it comes around every year, which means that the research that you do now sets you up to be way ahead next year. My key takeaway for today is to take action right now and don't wait for perfection, because you can use this season as both an opportunity and a rehearsal for next year.
But of course, Starla, we're not going to let you go that easily because, of course, you, as usual, have brought our viewers some free tools to help making finding trends a lot easier. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, you know I did. So today, 3 winners will be selected to win a year of eRank Pro just in time for the holiday season. All you have to do is sign up for that free bundle of goodies that I mentioned at starlaiscool.com, and your name will automatically be entered into the drawing for that free year of Pro.
And definitely, you want to take advantage of all these tools, so don't miss out on those. Make sure you claim them. And of course, if you are watching us right now, all of the stuff that we've just talked about with Starla is available in a handy cheat sheet, which you can grab over at Sellers Club, including the difference between fleeting trends and some of the stuff that we've talked about here about trends that you need to look out for. But Starla, thank you so much for joining us again. Hopefully, we'll get you back next year in person.
Absolutely.
Here's the thing. We've been sitting on something for a long time that is very, very huge. And it's about trends because, like you said, there's lots of tools. There's SEO, there's social media. But what if I told you that we just invented a brand new tool that gives you the top trending trends every day on your Printify dashboard? Want to learn more? Then you got to check this out.